Ever felt like the world tried to own you, but you fought to be free? This Western epic's for you. Grab a seat, because it's going to feel like your own story. I was worth $1. That's what the man yelled when nobody else would bid. $1 and she's yours, he barked, like he was selling a mule that had gone lame. I didn't look up. I stopped doing that a long time ago. Eyes bring trouble. If you look a man in the eye out here, you either end up owned or hurt, or both. My wrists were raw from the iron, dress torn at the shoulder, dirt crusted so deep into my skin I didn't even remember the color underneath. But I still had it, my locket, Mama's locket, cold against my chest like it was trying to remind me I was still someone, still real, still hers. Hey partner, ever felt like the world's chasing you down? This story's for you. Smash that like button if you've ever fought to be free. Not sure? Tell us your fight in the comments. Stick around. The final twist will leave you stunned. The dust swirled around that godforsaken trading post like even the wind was too ashamed to stop. People passed by like I wasn't there. A girl in chains. Nothing new in this place. Just another lost thing in a land full of them. They didn't know my name. Hell, I barely remembered it some days. Mercy. That's what Mama named me. Said the world could use more of it. She had no idea how short it would come up. I counted heartbeats. That's how I passed the hours. Count enough of them and the day ends. Or you do. Then he stepped forward, boots heavy, worn like he'd walked through more than mud in them, tall, shoulders broad, beard like he hadn't cared for years what folks thought of him. He looked tired. Not in the way folks get from a long day's work, in the way that settles in your bones after too many winters alone. He said it quiet. I'll take her. Didn't shout it, didn't grin like the rest of them would. He just said it like he meant it. And that was the part that scared me. Men don't buy girls for good reasons. That's just truth. But there was something strange in the way he looked at me, like he was seeing something I didn't even know I still had, something I thought was gone. He walked up to unlock the shackle, and that's when I panicked. I jerked back, hand flying to the chain at my throat. I wasn't going to let him touch it. That locket, Mama's locket, was all I had. If he tried to take it, I was going to claw his damn eyes out. But he didn't. He just stared at it, at me, like his soul had just been yanked out his chest. Then he dropped. Big man, knees in the dust, hands over his mouth and crying. Not the loud, showy kind, the broken kind, like something inside him cracked wide open. And that's when I knew something was wrong. Why do you know this necklace? I asked. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through everything else. Why do you know what it means? He didn't speak. He reached out, slow, like I was a wild animal he didn't want to spook, and traced the edge of the silver. His fingers trembled. Big, strong hands that probably split logs clean through, now shaking like a leaf. 3 flowers, twisting together. That's what Mama always said they meant. Me, her, and the man she once loved. You have her eyes, I whispered. I didn't mean to say it out loud, but it slipped out before I could stop it. Green, like the edge of pine needles in winter. The same eyes Mama used to whisper about when the fever made her drift. He had your eyes, Mercy, she'd say. God help him. He didn't know how to stay. Now I was looking right at those eyes, and they were looking back. I didn't believe it. Couldn't. Until he said, with a voice torn up from the inside, I thought you died. I felt like the ground dropped beneath me. Because that's what Mama told me too. That he died before I could ever meet him. That he got lost in the mountains. That we had no one. No one left. Turns out that was a lie. Turns out my life ain't ever been mine at all. It was stitched together from broken stories and things people didn't have the guts to say out loud. And now the man who bought me wasn't a stranger. He was my father. He didn't take me to a brothel, or a barn, or some back shack with locked doors and no windows. He took me to a cabin on the edge of the woods. Quiet. Like the whole world stopped breathing out there. Just the creak of his boots and the wind scratching dry leaves across the porch. He didn't say much on the ride. I didn't either. I sat in the back of the wagon, chain still dragging from my wrist, holding that locket like it was a lifeline. My stomach twisted the whole way. I kept waiting for him to snap, for the calm to break and show me what he really was underneath. But he just looked forward, like he was scared to look back at me. When we got there, he didn't touch me, just unlocked the chain, handed me a blanket and said, "The bed's yours. I'll take the floor." I stared at him. I wasn't used to choices. Not anymore. Didn't know if it was a trick. Maybe it still was. He didn't press. Didn't even watch me. Just sat down near the hearth and started poking at cold ashes with a stick, like that was the most important thing in the world. That night, I didn't sleep. Every noise made me flinch. I held that damn blanket up to my chin and stared at the ceiling like it held answers. But my head was too full. Of Mama, of that man, of what he said, what he felt when he saw the necklace, and of how something in me wanted it to be true so bad it hurt. But that was the problem. I wanted it to be true, and wanting something, that's how you get burned. I've been lied to before, plenty. Promises made with sweet words and crooked hands. Men who said they'd help, women who looked the other way. They all disappeared when things got hard, or worse, turned mean. So I tried not to feel it, that flicker in my chest, that pull toward the man who bought me with nothing but a whisper and a tear. But come morning, he said he had something to show me. It was a letter, old, paper worn thin and soft like cloth. The edges curled, stained in places like someone cried over it once, or 100 times. He held it out like it weighed 100 pounds, said, "Your mama left this, said you'd know when the time came." My hands shook taking it. I almost dropped it twice trying to break the seal, and when I opened it, her voice hit me like a punch to the gut. "My beloved Gideon." She wrote about the fever, about the winter she didn't think she'd survive, about the choice to send me away. Said she lied because she knew him. Said he'd never forgive himself if he thought I lived but suffered. She asked him to let go, to start over, to build something good from the ashes. But he didn't. He ran. 15 years he lived in the woods, thinking we were both dead, thinking he had nothing left but the weight of a past he couldn't fix. I couldn't breathe after reading it. My fingers went numb, my head swam, because the truth is, I used to hate the man in Mama's stories. He left, Mercy. He didn't come back for us, Mercy. He loved you, but he was weak. She never said it like that. But I could hear it between the words. And now here he was, right in front of me. A ghost with skin and bones and a name. He knelt beside me, voice low like he was scared to break the moment. I didn't know. God help me, I didn't know. I looked at him, really looked. He wasn't what I imagined. Not strong like the storybook father I used to dream about when I was little. Not fearless, not proud, but maybe that made it real. He was broken, and not in the dangerous kind of way. In the human kind, the kind that makes you sit in silence with someone and feel the air between you shift. That was the moment I believed him. But believing don't fix things. Because once the silence settled, another question came crawling into my gut like a snake. If Mama sent me away to be safe, how the hell did I end up in chains? He asked where I'd been, who took me. I didn't want to say it at first. It felt like bleeding in front of someone, but I did. I told him about the aunt back east, about how she died when I was 16, about Preston, slimy, smiling Preston, who showed up with papers and promises and a forked tongue. Said he was there to help, said he'd handle the estate, that I'd have money, a future. Instead, he stole everything, took what little Mama's sister left behind, said I owed him for food, for travel, for breathing. Then he sold me to Ward, like I was a mule, or less. I told him all of it, and when I looked up, I swear the man in front of me changed. His face didn't move much, but something behind the eyes snapped. He didn't cry, he didn't shout, he just stood, quiet, like a tree before it falls. He said only 4 words. "Where is he now?" I told him. "Still in town. Saw him at the saloon." He nodded, picked up that old axe like it was part of his arm. Didn't look at me when he spoke next. "Wait for me at the church." My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I wanted to say, "Don't go." I wanted to say, "Take me with you." I wanted to say, "I'm not ready to lose you again." But he was already moving. And deep down, I knew I wasn't staying put. Because this time, I wasn't a girl waiting to be saved. This time, I had something to fight for too. And God help the man who tried to take it from me again. And just like that, everything changed. 1 second I was sitting on that porch, my hands still shaking from the night before, and the next I was staring into a man's face, his face, realizing the world I thought I knew wasn't real at all. He didn't move fast, just stood there like his legs forgot how to work, like all the air in his chest had been sucked out the second his eyes landed on the locket. My locket, Mama's locket. When I saw his expression, how his whole body crumpled like he'd been shot, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. And it scared the hell out of me. I should have run, should have turned away and shouted that he was too late, that he didn't get to show up now and break down in front of me like I was some lost thing he'd dropped and suddenly remembered. But I didn't. I just stood there, frozen, watching this big, weathered man collapse to his knees, his hands trembling, tears running through the lines of his beard like he'd forgotten what crying even felt like. When I asked him how he knew the necklace, he couldn't even speak. And I think that's what got me. Not the tears, not the silence, but the fact that this man, this stranger, was feeling something so strong, he couldn't talk through it. It took a long minute before either of us said anything else. Then I whispered, "You have her eyes." And as soon as the words left my mouth, it was like something cracked open in both of us. Like years of silence and pain and wondering had just started pouring out into the dirt between us. That's when he said it. Voice rough, like it had been rusted shut too long. "I thought you died." I swear, the wind stopped moving. The trees, the birds, the whole damn world just paused. I felt dizzy, angry, confused. Because that's what Mama told me too, that he died before I was even born, that there was no one left, no man to come save me, no father to cry over me, just her, me, and the sickness that took her away. But now here he was, alive, standing in front of me, holding the weight of 15 years in his hands like it was too heavy to carry. He asked me my name, barely got the words out. "Mercy," I said. "Mercy Whitmore." And the second he heard that last name, it was like the ground dropped out from under him. He dropped to the dirt again, but this time it wasn't surprise. It was guilt, bone-deep, soul-shattering guilt. Because he knew then. I wasn't just some girl sold in chains. I was his girl. The one he'd buried in his heart, along with her mother, when he thought the whole world had ended. I watched him fall apart, and part of me wanted to comfort him. But the other part, the one that survived beatings and betrayal and every kind of hell you can name, kept asking, "Where the hell were you?" I should have screamed that. Should have asked why he didn't fight harder, why he didn't check the truth. Why he let himself disappear into the woods while I grew up hunted by men like Preston. But I couldn't, because the pain on his face, it was real, and I knew it, felt it, carried that same kind in my own bones. He said he buried 2 graves, said one was hers and one was mine, that he saw the markers himself. Someone lied to you, I told him. He looked at me like he didn't want to believe it, but he did, because deep down, he already knew. I reached into my dress and pulled out the letter Mama gave me before she passed. The one she said was meant for him. I was told to give you this only if you ever found me. He took it with hands that didn't stop shaking. Like touching the paper was like holding her again. When he unfolded it, I saw the color drain from his face. He didn't read it all, just enough. Just the parts that said she'd lied, that she did it to protect him, that she sent me east so I'd be safe, that she thought dying with peace in her heart was better than letting him destroy himself trying to save us both. He stared at the words like they were nails in his chest. And for the first time, I saw it. This man, this wild, broken man, had loved her. He still did. That kind of love don't die, even if the people do. He asked me what happened after, where I went, what became of me. So I told him everything. The aunt who raised me, how she died, how Preston showed up with fake papers and smoother lies than any preacher I'd ever heard, said he was a lawyer, said he was helping me, said Mama left a property, said I could claim it, then he robbed me, took every cent, locked me in a wagon and sold me down the trail like I was just another piece of meat. I watched my father's face change. No more sadness, no more confusion, just fire. It wasn't loud, it wasn't wild, but I could feel it building in him. When I told him Preston was still around, still slithering through town like nothing happened, he stood up slow, grabbed his axe, and didn't even look back. Wait for me at the church, he said. But I didn't, couldn't, because I knew what that look meant. I'd seen it in too many men's eyes before. It meant blood was coming. So I followed. We walked down that dusty street, him in front, me a few steps behind. Not close enough to stop him, not far enough to lose him. And when we reached the saloon, and he pushed those doors open with that axe hanging from his hand like judgment itself, I knew this wasn't just about saving me anymore. This was about every mistake, every lie, every lost year coming due. And Preston? He had no idea the storm that was coming for him. I should have listened when he told me to wait at the church. But I didn't. I followed him anyway. I kept my distance, stuck to the shadows, heart pounding like it was trying to punch its way out of my chest. I knew I wasn't supposed to be there, but I also knew I couldn't let him walk into that saloon alone, not when I was the reason for all of this. He stepped through the doors first, slow, like he'd done it before, more than once, like he knew exactly what waited for him on the other side. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, just walked in, holding that axe the way other men hold a Bible. Preston was there, of course he was, sitting at a corner table with his usual smug face and those 2 hired guns on either side. He acted calm, like he was in control, like he still thought this was some game he could win with words and paperwork. But the second he saw my father, that calm cracked. The saloon went silent. You could have heard a tear hit the floor. My father didn't raise his voice. He just said, "You're gonna tell me how she ended up in chains." Preston blinked, tilted his head like he couldn't believe the audacity. Then that snake grin came crawling back on his face. "She owed me money," he said. "Travel, food, legal fees. I did what was within my rights." Legal. That word made my stomach churn, because men like him love to hide behind words like that. Legal, contract, Guardian. They don't mean justice, they just mean loopholes. He kept talking, and the more he did, the clearer it became. He hadn't just stolen from me, he'd been planning to own me, said I was under his care, said when I turned 21, I'd inherit what Mama left, said the only way that money would stay safe was if he married me. Yeah, you heard that right. Married. He wanted to make it all look clean, make himself the victim of some poor girl's rebellion, make me a wife just long enough to get the money and then… Well, I don't think he thought that far ahead. Or maybe he did. Maybe he planned every piece of it. When he said that word, marriage, I saw my father's grip tighten on the axe. And then Preston made a mistake. He threatened him, told him that if I didn't come willingly, he'd shoot my father right there, that he'd already planned for this, that I'd either be his bride or an orphan again. That's when I moved. I didn't think. I just grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a glass from the bar, and hurled it at Preston's hand just as he reached for a little gun tucked under the table. It shattered against his wrist. He screamed like a kicked dog. Everything exploded after that. One of Preston's men drew a shotgun. My father knocked it clean across the room with the flat of his axe. The other guy lunged, but got caught with a punch so hard he dropped without a sound. Chairs flew, people dove for cover. I don't remember how I got behind the bar, just that I crawled through broken glass and spilled whiskey, trying to stay out of the way while still watching everything. When the dust settled, Preston was the only one left standing. Barely. My father stepped over the bodies, chest heaving. Not from rage, from holding it all in too long. And I walked up beside him, stood tall, looked Preston dead in the eye. You destroyed enough lives, I told him. But you made one mistake. His lip trembled. What's that? You gave me back my father. That hit harder than anything else in that room. He stumbled, tried to speak, but the words got stuck behind his pride. That's when the sheriff finally showed up. Took one look around, saw Preston on the floor bleeding from the wrist, saw the busted up bar, and sighed like this wasn't the first time that place had turned into a war zone. He didn't ask questions. Didn't need to. Someone must have talked, because next thing I knew, they were dragging Preston and his thugs out in shackles. My father didn't say much on the walk back, just carried the axe like it still had one more job to do, and I kept close to his side, still shaking, still raw, but breathing easier than I had in years. At the cabin, we sat on the steps, no words, just stars above and fireflies blinking slow like the world was finally catching its breath. That's when he handed me the letter again. Mama's letter. Said I should keep it now, and I asked him the one thing I hadn't dared ask all day. What happens now? He looked at me, real long, like he wasn't seeing me as the girl in chains anymore, but the woman standing her ground. And he said soft but steady, now we go home. I didn't know what that meant then. Didn't know if home was a place or just the space between two people finally finding each other again. But it sounded right, felt right. The danger wasn't over. Preston still had people, still had connections, and my birthday was coming up fast. There was still the trust, still the fight for the inheritance, still a whole mess of legal knots to untangle. But now I had something I didn't before. A name, a witness, and someone who'd swing an axe before letting me be taken again. That night, I curled up in the cabin's single bed while my father kept watch by the window. He didn't sleep, just sat there, keeping the dark at bay. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel alone. It didn't happen all at once. The change, I mean. I didn't wake up one morning and suddenly feel whole. I didn't look in the mirror and see a different girl staring back. That ain't how healing works out here. Not for folks like us. It was slower than that. Like how the cold starts to lift in spring, just enough warmth in the breeze to make you wonder if winter's really over. But then it snows again, and you start doubting yourself. That's how it felt. But still, something started to shift. Maybe it was the way my father, I started calling him that in my head even if I never said it out loud, would cook breakfast without asking what I liked. Just did it. Quiet. Simple. Like he'd already decided he was gonna learn me one bite at a time. Or maybe it was the way he never pressed. Never sat me down and said, "Tell me everything." He just listened. When I wanted to talk, he was there. When I didn't, he was still there. There was this one night, cold enough that we had to keep the fire going till dawn. I couldn't sleep, so I sat up and started carving into a scrap of wood, just making lines. Didn't mean anything. He came over and sat across from me, didn't ask what I was making, just said, "That's good work." And that was it. No fuss, no big lesson, just a man noticing something in his daughter. I think that was the first time I let myself believe I had a father. The cabin started feeling more like a place where people lived, not just where they hid. I cleaned out the back room, fixed a shutter, found a half-broken stool and made it stand again. Wasn't much, but it was mine. And him. He stopped looking like a ghost, started shaving more regular, brushing his coat. Even laughed once when a squirrel dropped a pine cone on his head while he was splitting logs. I hadn't heard that sound before. His laugh. It was rough, like gravel in a tin cup, but it made my chest ache in a good way. We started going into town together more. Folks looked at us different now. Not like a runaway and the man who'd bought her, but like something else. Like a family. Billy, the boy from the smithy, asked if I was okay one day, just flat out asked. No tiptoeing. I told him I was figuring it out. He nodded and said, "That's enough. You're still standing." It stuck with me, because I was still standing. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just surviving. I was learning. Learning to live. Learning to trust my own voice again. I wrote a letter to the town clerk asking about the inheritance, told him I had the original papers, that my mother's wishes would be honored. Took me 2 tries to get the words right. I ain't no lawyer, but I wrote it anyway, with my own hand. My father read it before we sent it off. Didn't say much, just handed it back and tapped the spot where I'd signed my name. "Looks like a woman wrote that," he said. I smiled for the first time that day. One evening, while I was out brushing the old mule near the shed, he walked up behind me, said, "I want to fix this place up." I thought he meant the fence, or maybe the roof, but he looked around like he saw more than just the cabin. He meant us. I didn't answer, just handed him the hammer I'd been using to patch the rail. We spent the next week building new steps, fixing the door, clearing brush out front. Folks rode by and waved. One even stopped and offered to trade 2 hens for firewood. Little things, but little things matter. Because out here, sometimes the only way you know you're still alive is if something around you starts to grow. And we were growing, not perfect, not fast, but real. And that was enough for me. Then came the letter. Showed up in the post office like any regular piece of paper. No warning, no red ink, just a plain white envelope with my name on it in sharp, scratchy handwriting. But the second I touched it, I knew something wasn't right. It smelled like trouble. I held it in my hand all the way home, didn't even open it till I was sitting at the kitchen table. My father was outside chopping kindling, humming something I couldn't quite place. Sounded like a tune Mama used to hum when she thought I was asleep. I took a breath, cracked the seal, and read. It was from Preston's lawyer, one of those slick types from the city. Said Preston was making a legal claim. Said I'd broken a contract and that my father used violence to interfere with a lawful guardianship. I read the line twice, then a third time just to be sure. Lawful guardianship. That's what he called it. The chains, the selling, the lying. All of it boiled down into one pretty phrase on a piece of letterhead. I wanted to scream. Instead, I folded the paper real slow and set it down. When my father walked back in, wiping his hands on a rag, I looked up at him and said, "He's not done." He didn't ask who, didn't have to. He just stared at me like he'd been waiting for this day. "All right," he said, "that's all. Not panic, not anger, just, all right. We spent that night at the table, laying out every document I had. The trust, Mama's last letter, the letter from my aunt's estate, even that faded photo of me as a baby, sitting on Mama's lap with that same locket hanging off my neck. He didn't talk much, just read slow, careful, like every word was a fuse waiting to blow. Finally, he leaned back and said, "We don't fight this the way he expects." I asked him what that meant. He smiled, tight and tired. "We don't fight with fists this time. We fight with truth." So the next morning, we hitched up the wagon and rode out toward Carter's Bluff. That's where Judge Hollingsworth kept court on Wednesdays. Not a big courthouse, just a room behind the general store with 2 chairs, a desk, and a Bible that had seen better days. But he was fair, and he didn't like men like Preston. I carried every paper I had in a leather satchel, held it against my chest like a shield. My father walked beside me, slower than usual. I think the weight of the past 15 years was starting to show on his shoulders. We sat across from the judge and laid it all out. I told the story, not as a victim but as someone who lived it. I made sure my voice didn't crack when I said Preston's name. Made sure the judge heard every time I said, "He lied. He sold me." He made me believe I was alone. The judge didn't say much while I spoke, just nodded and asked for the documents. Then he turned to my father. "Gideon Nash," he said, "you were presumed dead." "By whom?" "My wife's sister," my father replied, voice like gravel. "She lied. Said my daughter had died too. And if you'd known the truth, I would have walked through fire to find her." That's when I lost it. Not loud, not messy, just tears. Quiet ones. Because I believed him. Judge Hollingsworth took a long time reading the papers. When he finally looked up, he said, "Far as I can see, Miss Mercy Whitmore is of sound mind and age to make her own decisions, and far as I can see, the man who calls himself her guardian has no right to even say her name." Then he picked up the stamp, slammed it down on the last page, and said, "That trust belongs to her. Full stop." My hands shook when I signed. Not because I was scared, but because I'd never written my name like that before. Mercy Whitmore. No chains. No owner. Just mine. As we stepped out of that little room, my father reached over and took my hand. It was rough and calloused, but warm. "Still want to fix up that back porch?" he asked. I laughed, wiped my eyes. "Yeah," I said, "but maybe tomorrow." Because today, I finally got my name back. ChatGPT Danoi. We should have known it wasn't over. Just because a judge stamped some paper and gave me my name back didn't mean Preston was finished. Men like him don't lose easy, especially not when money's involved, especially not when their pride gets bruised in public. It started with the looks. People in town who used to nod at us started avoiding our eyes. Some stopped talking when we walked by. One storekeeper wouldn't even take my father's coin. Whispers came next. "She ain't what she says she is. He didn't rescue her. He bought her." Maybe Preston had a point after all. They didn't say it to our faces, but they didn't have to. Out here, words carry on wind. And then the fire happened. It was small, thank God, just a corner of the shed. But it was enough. Enough to smell the smoke before dawn. Enough to make my father sleep with the axe beside his bed again. Enough to remind me that papers don't stop bullets and justice don't keep you warm at night. He tried to stay calm, tried to tell me we were safe now that Preston was out of the picture. But I could see it in his eyes. He was waiting, bracing, like a storm was circling just out of sight. And I felt it too. I stopped going into town alone, stopped answering knocks at the door without a hand on the shotgun. Started carrying Mama's locket under my dress again, like it could protect me from the past crawling back. One night, I couldn't sleep. Sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the stars like they had answers. My father came out, didn't say nothing at first, just sat beside me and listened to the wind. Then he said something I won't ever forget. They think we're broken. I didn't answer. He turned to me. But we ain't. We bent, yeah, bent hard. But we're still standing, still us. It hit me deep, because he was right. Preston could lie, could pay folks off, could send threats in the night and try to burn what we'd built. But he couldn't take what we knew, that we were family, that we survived, that we'd bled and hurt and clawed our way through fire just to sit here, side by side, under the stars. And no man, no law, no whispering mouth in town could change that. So when the next letter came, another threat, another lie wrapped in legal words, I didn't flinch. I lit it on fire, watched it curl and blacken on the stove. And my father? He just nodded. We didn't run, we didn't hide, we waited, together. And then, just like that, it was done. Not with a gunshot, not with a fire, not even with a fight. It ended with silence. A rider came through town one morning, dust thick on his boots. Said Preston had been caught in the next territory over, trying to forge court papers under a different name. Someone recognized him. Said the law took him in. No trial yet, but he wouldn't be coming back. Just like that, the storm passed. We didn't celebrate, didn't dance around the fire or shout into the hills. That ain't who we are. We just sat quiet, let it settle. I walked out to Mama's grave that night, the little marker we set by the tree behind the cabin. I knelt down, placed the locket on the dirt just for a minute, let it rest where it started. I found him, I whispered, and he stayed. The wind rustled like she heard me. Back at the porch, my father had carved something new into the beam above the steps. Simple letters, rough hands. It said, "We're still here." That's it. No grand words, just truth. I guess that's all we ever wanted, really. Not revenge, not riches, just truth. Now we spend our days fixing fences, tending the garden, talking about adding chickens come spring. We ain't rich, but the land listens when we speak. The house holds heat better. The air feels lighter. Sometimes I still wake up in the dark, heart racing, waiting for chains or shouting or fire. But most nights, I sleep. Deep. Like I belong somewhere. Like I'm safe. And every now and then I catch my father watching me from the porch. He don't say much, just nods. I think that's his way of saying he's proud. So if you're still listening, if you've made it this far, just know this. You can lose everything. Name, blood, truth. But if you're lucky and brave enough to keep going, you just might find your way back. I did. Sometimes life don't break you all at once. It chips away, little by little. A lie here, a loss there, a door that never opens, a face you thought would stay, but didn't. And then one day, you wake up and don't recognize yourself. You're not who you were, but you're not yet someone new either. You're just stuck between. That's where Mercy was. She wasn't looking for a fight. She wasn't chasing revenge. She was just trying to survive, trying to hold on to the last thread of her mother's voice. A name, a memory, a locket. And what happened? She got sold, lied to, betrayed. But here's the thing. She didn't break. She bent. Yeah, got tossed around like driftwood in a flood. But somewhere in that storm, she found something most folks never do. She found her voice. And what a powerful thing that is. Because your voice, your truth, that's the one thing no one can steal. Not with chains, not with threats, not with a contract signed in blood and lies. It took Mercy staring down the man who stole her freedom to realize she wasn't just some girl with a tragic past. She was a woman with fire in her chest and roots deeper than she knew. And Gideon, that old, silent man with hands made for chopping wood and building walls, he found something too. He found forgiveness, not just for others, but for himself. That's maybe the hardest kind. He thought he failed his family, thought he didn't deserve a second chance. So he ran from everything, hid in trees and silence and shame. But life, in its own quiet way, handed him a second chance wrapped in dirt and tears and a silver locket. And he took it. So what does that mean for us? What do we take from this story? It means that even if you've been lied to, even if you've been used, hurt, forgotten, it don't define you. It shapes you, sure, carves you up some. But it don't finish the story. You do. It means we don't have to come from perfect places to be worth loving. We don't have to understand all the wrongs to start making things right. And we don't need the world to hand us permission to fight for ourselves or for someone else. Sometimes you just gotta stand. Stand like Mercy did. In a room full of guns, lies, and fear. And say, you don't own me. Stand like Gideon did. Axe in hand. Heart wide open. Not running from the past, but walking through it. This story, it's about second chances. But more than that, it's about choosing to believe we're still worthy of one. So if you're listening to this right now, wherever you are, maybe it's time you forgive yourself. Maybe it's time you reach out to someone you thought you lost. Maybe it's time you stop waiting for life to hand you peace and start claiming it. Just like Mercy. Because the truth is, we're all carrying something. A hurt, a memory, a silence that's lasted too long. But we don't have to carry it alone, and that's the power of stories like this. They remind us we ain't broken beyond repair. They remind us that even after the fire, something good can grow, and maybe, just maybe, that something good is you. So if this story touched you, if it reminded you of someone you've loved, lost, or are still fighting for, don't let it end here. Leave a comment below and tell us your favorite moment. Hit that subscribe button and join this little campfire we're building, one story at a time. And if you believe in second chances like we do, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because out here in the Wild West, justice might come late, but it comes. Thanks for listening. Now go live your story and make it count.